Welcome to the Classy Stevo podcast, where every day is a golden moment in time. We talk about the news, artistic culture, training methods, nutrition, and more for classic bodybuilding, as well as updates on the fitness industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The show is about to get on rolling. Welcome back, guys, to the Classy Stevo podcast show, where every day is a golden moment in time. So today I wanted to kind of take a brief intermission from the bodybuilding evolution series and kind of shuffle over to an interesting topic I've been hearing about on Instagram from classic bodybuilding perspectives and whatnot. But basically it revolves around how do you determine a true classic body type and composition. So basically we're talking about like replicating the guys back in the days of like the 60s, 70s, 80s with that classic image. Because today, obviously, we have the classic physique class, which is, still very impressive guys. But do these guys really replicate, to the fullest extent of what the guys in the past displayed? Now, of course, today we've got more enhancements, we got more technology, there's further advancements overall, and I've kind of explained this, and this is kind of the whole point of the series that I started with the bodybuilding evolution. But what's interesting is, like, if you think about it, do a lot of these guys up on the classic physique stage today replicate or display and represent very well the guys from the past? Now, the thing is, a lot of people have been talking about this, but there's certain key characteristics to look at people's body types and compositions that can really determine that true classic look. Now, I mean, there's no like law or like definition of saying, well, classic is exactly this, but we can make, general interpretations of what a classic look should look like. So basically, guys back in the day, first starting off with their shoulders, for one, they weren't overemphasized. Now, if you look at a lot of the classic physique guys today, their shoulders are just super capped. They're very, in some cases, just explosive, and they really draw attention to the shoulders rather than seeing that natural flow of the body. So in other words, back in the day, if you look at a lot of the competitors, I mean, I could just name one after another. Of course, Arnold, Lou Ferrigno, just like Sergio Oliva. Like, all these guys were really big, but their shoulders, they didn't have that crazy cap look to them. It was a nice natural flow of their shoulders, so they didn't like overemphasize or blow their physiques out of proportion because of having extra wide shoulders. So that's just one thing that a lot of people have gotten on. Talking about basically that could be a reason why some of the physiques today look different. Also, in general, I mean, guys nowadays, of course, they're a lot more cut and trimmed. Of course, we had some pretty ripped vascular guys back in the day, but I think even today, the problem is with a lot of classic physique guys that go on the stage are either too defined, too ripped, too cut, so they come in extra low weight, and they don't have that kind of natural classic look. I feel like classic physique in general shouldn't be overly emphasized on how cut you are. I think definition's very important for that class, but I think some people take it too far to the extent of thinking that the definition should be the same as like open bodybuilding class definitions, and in my personal opinion, I disagree with that. I think you don't need to be quite as defined, hence the whole look, because you're looking more at the symmetry, you're looking more at the flow. I mean, yes, it is very important to come in with quality conditioning, but not to overemphasize that. So I think that's another thing. And then also another thing about classic physique that's really caught my attention is that if you have too dramatic of proportions in general, let's just say your waist is like incredibly tiny, and you have absolutely gigantic shoulders, I mean, to a certain degree, I feel like the more drastic your body is, the slightly more like less overall as far as like the classic it looks. I mean, yes, sure, you had guys back in the day like Sergio Oliva that was just absolutely, of course, a monster. Like he was able to really pull off that really small waist and huge shoulders. So I mean, there are certain, extents and whatnot, but I'm just saying in general, I feel like the more like dramatic, like especially if you have like gigantic quads and a super super small waist, to me it kind of almost looks a little bit off and a little bit too extreme. So my definition of classic is definitely having that X frame and definitely having that symmetry and that flow, but not to an extent where it's like jagged or, in other words, just like very extreme in certain areas. So the better the flow is what I'm getting at, the more classic it looks. So those are kind of just some of the different things. And of course, just having all your muscle groups defined and whatnot and fully developed is definitely important, just like in bodybuilding in general. And also another very, very important thing are the calves, because I have seen competitors nowadays, classic physique competitors, they have great, bodies overall, good development and stuff. But then suddenly if you look down, of course, calves is an issue. And I know calf training in general has always been like a notorious thing for bodybuilders that get called out on because their calves are too small. But I mean, when it comes to classic physique, if you don't have your calves built up, it's going to really basically ruin your physique overall, the flow of it. I mean, the calves are just as important as every other muscle group, especially, just developing the full leg potential. So I've seen definitely competitors in the past come in with no calves and actually, they ended up winning the show. And it's just like, to me, that's just hard. That's a hard pill to swallow, I guess, if you want to call it that. But that's just another thing. So, there's just so many different things to focus on. And honestly, I think developing a classic look is actually a lot harder than one may think. A lot of people think that developing a classic look is like, just go in and hit the vacuum pose, do a few cool side twist shots, and suddenly, bam, you're qualified as a classic guy. I mean, classic is actually a very tricky thing. Bodybuilding in general, yeah, sure, you can put on all the muscle you want. Yes, it takes hard work. It takes time to get there, but it takes even more hard work to actually develop that symmetry, that flow. I mean, you got to have that eye for detail, and at the end of the day, you have to make sure everything's in check and all of the muscles are developed to a certain degree to make that natural flow. So classic physique is definitely not an easy thing. I think a lot of times today people just think, I almost feel like it's a bandwagon. Like people think, oh, it's cool to hit the vacuum. So, I'm going to sign up for classic physique and I'm going to hit the vacuum pose and, oh yeah, I'm just completely qualified and look at me and stuff. And it's like, that's that's not exactly the way to look at it nor start. It really takes years and years of developing and also learning, your posing and stuff like that, because that's just as big of a factor with classic physique as knowing how to hit those unique poses. There's definitely more stuff involved with it rather than your standard, required poses that you see a lot of times on the stage. So it's a lot of improvisation. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of, basically looking and just envisioning things different and all that stuff. So anyway, I would love to hear your feedback, guys, on this, just kind of what you think displays the classic look the best. It's a very interesting topic, like I said, because there's just so many factors involved, and I feel like the classic physique category, as far as like how easy or hard it is to get it, it's just really downplayed. I feel like a lot of people think it's easier than it actually is to develop that look. And I mean, I'm still glad the class has actually started coming back into the modern day industry. That is awesome, because I'm truly excited to see where this is going to go and stuff. It's still in its earlier stages, and I'm hoping that it will improve some, and as well as just like to see what the judging and stuff is really offering, because I know judging is a big factor with these shows, obviously, and some people have complained about the way the judges are looking at these guys and whatnot. So it's a very interesting thing. Still early in the game, like I said, so we'll have to see where this goes. But these are kind of just the general factors that I found to be important to develop that natural classic look. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show today. I'm going to continue onward with the series, the Bodybuilding Evolution series on the next podcast. And I'm actually going to be trying to join up with one of my good friends on Instagram to do a dual podcast remotely with him. He's over in California. So if we can get him on the show, that would be awesome. But anyway, guys, have a golden day. This is going to be a wonderful weekend ahead. Great weather here in St. Charles, Missouri. So stay tuned in. I will see you all in the next podcast. Cheers. Thank you again for tuning in to the Classy Stevo podcast. Material is generally posted on a weekly basis, so please stay tuned in for the next release. Your support, guys, is greatly appreciated, truly. So feel free to share this podcast with others and spread the positivity with them. And always remember to have a golden day. Cheers, guys.